This meeting is now being recorded. Good day, and welcome to the WANA Webinar Series. As you will notice, all participants have been muted. To enable multi-language closed captioning, click on the CC icon in the bottom left of your WebEx window. We have added a few notes within the chat window to enhance your webinar experience, such as changing your closed captioning language, how to submit a question, participating in the meeting polls, how to adjust your meeting view, and how to reach us for technical support. Select the chat icon at the bottom right of your screen to review these features and to engage with fellow members on today's topics. We welcome questions throughout today's event through the Q&A panel and will answer these after all presentations have concluded. Thank you for joining, and please welcome Lisa Kessler from Fountain House.
Thank you, Nikki. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the WANA Webinar Series. On behalf of Fountain House and Clubhouse International, I'm so pleased to announce that the WANA Steering Committee has now partnered with Clubhouse International Training Bases to host this series. We believe that this series is an essential tool to ongoing training opportunities, so it made perfect sense to collaborate with the 12 training bases to create the most relevant and timely content. As a reminder, after the live stream, all webinars are available on the WANA Webinar YouTube channel. We will post the link in the chat. In 2023, we have 4 webinars scheduled in February, May, September, and December, each hosted by a different training-based partner. So please keep your eyes peeled for the announcement of each of these events. Today, we are so pleased that Rebecca and Damon from Alliance House are here to host this very exciting topic. So Rebecca and Damon, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Rebecca, and I'm from Alliance House.
Good morning. I'm Damon. I'm also a member of Alliance House, and I'd first like to just thank the WANA Webinar Series, Fountain House, and Clubhouse International for inviting us to be the first moderators from the Training Base Committee. Today, we're going to be talking about practical tools for ensuring a vibrant Clubhouse afternoon, and I'm really excited to hear from our panelists and how they can help us.
As a training base, we have the opportunity to work with many different clubhouses, and throughout this last year, we've noticed some common challenges, especially challenges that have affected the vibrancy of many clubhouses' work order day, especially in the afternoons. Some of the challenges include staff that were hired during COVID and never really had the opportunity to see a work order day in action. Other challenges is that during COVID, many staff's responsibilities shifted due to clubhouse closures. So many staff were focusing more on case management and community supports. And staff really had to do a lot more work alone during COVID. And so as we're coming back, and hopefully COVID is ending soon, the staff are having to really get the work out of their heads and back onto the whiteboards.
Yeah, Rebecca's exactly right there. I've noticed many times in our unit meetings and house meetings where we're discussing a current problem we're having getting work done, and we realize, hey, we used to actually do that, and we already know how to do it. It's just we've forgotten those tasks, and we're going back and looking at old how-tos and old house meetings to really remember, some of the things that we used to do in the past. Although we're all focusing on the afternoons today, we really know that having just a vibrant clubhouse in the whole day will naturally help the work order day, and it's a general benefit to your clubhouse and to the whole clubhouse community.
We truly believe that the more organized and visual the work of the clubhouse is, the more it contributes to a full and engaging work order day, and it really brings that vibrancy into the clubhouse. So today we're going to hear from 2 clubhouses that will share their journey on what practical tips they utilize to create a more vibrant work order day. So first, we have Kelley and Michelle from Fresh Start in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And we've had an opportunity to work with them in an in-person training and help them create an action plan. And they're going to share their process of redefining their work order day, not only after a COVID shutdown, but at the same time becoming a freestanding clubhouse. Welcome, Kelley and Michelle.
Thank you, Rebecca and Damon. Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here. My name is Kelley. I'm with Fresh Start. Been with Fresh Start for about 3.5 years, and I am here today with my colleague Michelle to talk about our work order day.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Ford from Fresh Start Clubhouse. I'm here with Kelley, and I will walk you through how Fresh Start Clubhouse redefined our work order day to help it become more meaningful and vibrant.
Thanks, Michelle.
You.
All right, so first we begin giving everyone a little Fresh Start history lesson in the next slide. So the need for redefining our work order day was not the result of not only, as Rebecca stated, growing and evolving into a new freestanding clubhouse, but it also manifested from several dramatic events that happened over the last several years. And I think we're all familiar with what happened in March 2020, the pandemic. Fresh Start got hit especially hard. We, like everyone, put all of our work order day in person on pause, but also all of our staff was laid off temporarily. And we also lost our auspice agency. And then we eventually no longer had a physical location for our clubhouse to call home. So several weeks later, some staff were able to return, and the clubhouse had some decisions to make. After a long retreat with the clubhouse and the advisory board, we made the decision to become freestanding, which just added another complicated but very exciting layer to our unique situation.
Like Kelley said, we decided to go freestanding as a clubhouse. Fortunately, our CMH worked with us to support the organization by leading a temporary office space and loaning us a temporary office space so we can be able to afford a new location. But this came with other challenges. We alleged with the CMH, we had to align with the CMH COVID standards and remain virtual the first half of 2021, then became hybrid then. Currently, we have in-person and virtual work order days and offer hybrid options when possible. All of the new transformations and content challenging in our schedule led us to adapt work order and practices that slowly begin to stray away from our collaboration work environment. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce words that well. In the next slide, Kelley and I will explain how we began to notice our work order day was not working.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. You are doing awesome. So one thing we learned was that change takes time. Fresh Start began to struggle with having meaningful engagement when it came to strictly virtual work. But however, we noticed some challenges going back into in-person work. Creating accessible work was a big challenge for us. We had to navigate a lack of space, and we were trying to maintain the virtual work we were doing. We also struggled with the dynamic of health and wellness safeties for our community.
Something else we beginning to notice was a decrease in attendance at discussing making meetings. We also saw a shift of towards more than one out of work and less members led work. So we saw a shift in that as like one member led work. At first, some of this was due to the pandemic or the fact we were virtual, but that did not change when we went back in person. Eventually, we all realized we needed to figure out how to make our work order day vibrant again. Kelley, where did we start? Kelley, where did we start?
Well, let's see. Well, for the next slide, to redefine the work, we just started talking about it. Intentional discussions. Fresh Start had more intentional discussions about redefining our work order day. It started to be a continuous topic on our house meeting agendas. And we began to over communicate more through multiple platforms like Slack, Facebook, putting it in our daily Clubhouse announcements, and an automatic text reminder for when decision meetings were held to ensure members were more involved at these discussions. We also, once more people were attending, it just became really clear that the problem was much bigger than the normal, why aren't people showing up to our meetings? But it actually showed that the work order day structure was more set up for one-on-one support and more meetings than an accessible environment to do collaborative work.
The opportunities for virtual Clubhouse training and comprehensive training helped us begin taking steps towards a new structure and beginning conversations about our needs based on where we were as a clubhouse. We broke it down and looked at our needs for members, the work order day, and the new organizations. Deciding together with the training team addresses and maintained weekly check-ins for our action planning upon return. How do you think we did, Kelley?
Well, Michelle, for changes and outcomes, we've had a lot of twists and turns in our journey, but for the next slide, you'll see that I think we've been doing well so far. Today, our work order day is a lot more bustling and vibrant than when we first began to address these issues. We were able to make work more accessible to members by adding visible work that was consistent with the discussions and the needs that came out of those discussions to our daily whiteboards. We are also still working towards creating more virtual and in-person how-tos for our work. Additionally, we've been having more meaningful and more intentional discussions around the Clubhouse culture and standards, along with updating our work to align with our current needs.
Since deliberating meetings, we have increased hybrid work order day attendance and engagement. We have more intentional and meaningful discussions about the standards in the member-led culture clubhouse antibodies. Member-led and member-to-member support work has increased. Less formal meetings, more collaborative time working together side by side.
Thanks, Michelle. And lastly, we wanted to talk about some good practices that we are still maintaining. And some good practices that we have implemented and that have just been helpful to Fresh Start as we continue redefining our work order day, because we're always work in progress. Sorry about that. Maintaining open and regular communication is very important to us to hear the needs and changing needs of our community. Aligning those needs and what comes out of those conversations with the work in the clubhouse is very important to make sure we're all working towards what we set our goals to be. And reviewing this, giving your clubhouse chance to review your work order day. And embracing clubhouse culture discussions. We've created more intentional space within our unit meetings to talk about the standards, to talk about Clubhouse culture, and to help better understand why we do the work we do and like why we do it the way we do it, which has been very helpful for us.
That's how we define our work order today. Thank you for listening.
And the next slide is our thank you slide.
You're muted.
Damon, can you adjust your headset? It looks like your mic's up top.
Oh, that's why. That makes
Thank
more
you.
sense. I was like, I'm not muted, so I apologize. Thank you again, Michelle and Kelley and Fresh Start for that presentation. I think it was really important how you talked that it was an intentional process, that it didn't just happen overnight. You guys had to work on it, and you had house meetings and other, unit meetings to really figure out the ways to improve your work order day. So next, I'm excited that we're going to have Connections Place speak to us, and they'll be talking a bit about how they really built their work order day as they transitioned into becoming a Clubhouse model clubhouse. So welcome, Connections Place.
Thank you so much, Damon, and thank you, everybody. My name is Neelam Pahal. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a first-generation Canadian woman of Punjabi heritage. I've been with the Clubhouse since February of 2022, and I can honestly say that being part of this community has helped me build my own levels of confidence, feelings of acceptance, and supported pursuit of my own personal goals. So today, I'll let Mike introduce himself first.
Hi, my name is Mike Tibbles, and I joined Connections Place in May of this year. And prior to that, I was a member of another clubhouse also in Canada for about 10 years. And I apologize for the mask that I'm wearing today. I'm down under the weather a little bit, so I'm just kind of dealing with that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mike. So today we'll be talking about how Connections Place here in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, has built a vibrant work-ordered afternoon.
Okay. So a little bit of our history. We started as an idea based out of a great need for an organization for young adults living with mental health challenges. Growing to what it is today, a clubhouse with 268 members and an average daily attendance of 20. And we're in in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada.
West Coast. We have a land acknowledgement here. It's not showing clearly on our slides, but we would like to thank the First Nations people on whose lands that our clubhouse was founded and still continues to grow. So we're WSÁNEĆ First Nations and Lekwungen peoples. So, history.
Okay, so as you can see, in 2014, our founder, Jackie Pahal, started a local mental health advocacy group called Moms Like Us, and it was a group of parents of caregivers living with children who were adults with mental illness. Mm-hmm. And Connections Place opened in 2019 out of that group.
Yeah. In the next slide, we talk about how the changes that we made at Connections Place in our work order day were implemented after we also hosted a retreat at our clubhouse following the colleague training we attended. And we informed our community here that there were recommended steps to be taken to be more aligned with clubhouse philosophy. So we'll go over a brief timeline here to paint the picture a little bit better and provide some context into how we were able to shift our work and keep our members attending, feeling connected, and engaged.
Okay, so as you can see, Connections Place cycled through many executive directors, and part of the challenge with that was that none of the executive directors had a clubhouse model or clubhouse philosophy background. So when I was hired in this year, we sent Neelam and another member to colleague training. And then we also sent folks to the World Seminar in Baltimore. So we were set up on a great track to be successful to make the changes that we needed to make. We completed our accreditation in October. One of the main feedback points we received was that we had a strong, vibrant work order day. It made all the learning, hard work, and commitment to growth so worthwhile.
In the next slide, we'll talk about the first thing that we changed, which was our daily schedule and calendar. So on the left there, you can see that for a typical afternoon, we would have lunch at noon. We called our unit meetings afternoon members meetings. So changing the language around that was really important. And then shortly after the meeting, we would have a writing club, and then following that, accessible yoga. So it didn't leave a lot of time to do the work of the work order day. It kind of built a culture of let's try to finish our jobs as fast as we can so that we can attend these wellness groups in the afternoon. But ever since attending the colleague training and doing our retreat at our clubhouse, we've changed our opening hours and staff hours to be the same. So now we open and staff start at the same time as the clubhouse operates. We moved our social and wellness groups into our evenings. So every Thursday is a social activity. Members often will grab coffee together for the hour before the social activity. So now we've noticed that there's been a lot of social support and connection outside of clubhouse hours. And that's been really nice to see relationships growing in that way. But yeah, now after colleague training, we do our lunch. We still have a wellness time and do a walk and have our afternoon unit meetings.
Okay, next slide. So our members' meetings were very long historically, and we spent usually over 30 minutes on mental health check-ins for members, flipping through a binder that had check-in prompts, a joke of the day, wellness tips, announcements that only staff were able to communicate. And completing the whiteboard also took a long time. The jobs were pretty general, and it was confusing to figure out where the priorities were and when they should be done. As a result, there was a huge lack of accessibility and realism in completing the work, even side by side. That was pre-colleague training.
Yeah. So in the next slide, after colleague training, we separated into 2 units. So our kitchen and maintenance unit and business and career. It helped paint a clearer image of the work that was needing to be done and where a member could focus their interest for the day. In our unit meetings, we introduce our names, pronouns, length of time we'll be in the unit, and how we're doing. So it's still important that we are checking in. It's just the pace has quickened a bit more. We'll go over activities and social programs for the week, ask if there's any good or fun news, and then ask who would like to sign up and do the work board. So the pace has changed. We've moved away from trying to finish the work as soon as possible, so there's time to do wellness groups, such as the writing club and art club and things like that. And there's been a real palpable feeling of that there is a lot of work to do, and we come together and check in throughout the afternoon on what needs to be done and what the priority is for that day. And if there's not enough time, which there often isn't, we find a way to put it off to the next day, at least in the business unit.
Next slide. So this is our business and career unit board. This work board has a flow and a format, starting with the date at the top left-hand corner, prioritizing community needs, so housing, employment, wellness, etc., taking attendance, daily jobs, weekly jobs, a to-do list, and checking the monthly calendar. Member leaders are in attendance regularly, so we have a good group of people who know the flow of the day. They're able to mentor newer members and members who are less sure or attend less frequently. This has happened in part because of the new structure and organization, but also because we've been more active around routinely checking in with members about their interests. We ask what our goals are, what type of work people would like to do, and we start out with the work side by side and present them with tools. The how-to binder that we've created is a great tool thanks to Alliance House for that. That helps staff and members remember how to do the work and have something to fall back on. Now that the work has been fleshed out, there's increased ownership over the processes and how we can improve. The pace is quick and then efficiency has dramatically increased.
So we've got some examples of changes we've made within each unit in the next slide that have helped with that flow of the day. In the kitchen and maintenance unit, before we were opening as soon as the clubhouse opened and closing the kitchen when the clubhouse closed. So that didn't leave a lot of time to complete closing duties, making sure all the dishes were washed. And often it felt like kind of a sprint towards the end of the day. So now our kitchen is closed during our morning and afternoon unit meetings. It's closed after lunch has been served so that everybody that's working in the kitchen has time to have their lunch. And we close 1 hour before the house does, so there's enough time to complete the closing duties and cleaning. We share maintenance jobs between both units because often in the kitchen there's a lot of like physically demanding jobs. So now that we share cleaning the bathroom, sanitizing high touch areas, tracking finances, and completing the cash out, it's helped decrease some of that load on the kitchen unit. And we also have a frozen meal program. So we saw that there was a lot of food waste in the past because sometimes people would sign up for lunch and maybe not come. We don't have a lot of storage in our refrigerators. So there was this idea aligned with our values of decreasing food waste where we could freeze whatever wasn't sold for lunch and then sell that also at the same price for $2. And then it offers options for people as well who might not be able to eat the lunch of the day so they can kind of have some more choice. We've hired another staff, so that's help offset like some of the stress in the kitchen. We have 2 staff there and they'll alternate who's facilitating the lunch prep for that day and leading the lunch. And members have been writing up a lot of the how-tos in both units, we would say. So kind of from their lens, we can make sure the work is accessible or at least more accessible. In the business unit, we have tons of work boards. We have a daily and weekly board, a monthly board, a tour and orientation board, and employment boards. So really taking the work out of our minds and onto something physical has helped as a visual tool. We use Google Sheets for our reach out log. We started our reach out log with members that we were seeing regularly and just asking them when, if, and how they would like us to connect with them. And the system also notifies us when reach out is due. So it's working for now. We use the Google Drive, my Microsoft Outlook, where we have folders and unit emails that have all of our relevant documentation and calendars. And yeah, sharing all of this work and knowing what the deadlines are has helped keep that cohesiveness in the unit.
So on to the next slide. That's not to say that everything was smooth sailing. We did have some challenges. Some staff expressed concern about donor information, names, addresses, payment information being accessible to members, member contact information, and U.S. storage being a breach of confidentiality. So we have our database stored in the United States, which was a concern for some folks because our protection of privacy form didn't explicitly state that members had access to certain information or that their information is stored in the U.S. servers. We've updated this information and now we think we've addressed that. Change is hard, so there's a lot of support around grief relating to change that happened. Mm-hmm. Professional contacts, workloads, and how to complete the work was difficult to let go of for some staff. It was a loosening of control and a huge collaborative shift. It's taken time to adjust, but now staff are on board. Wellness is still there. It's just within the work of the day, side by side, a reminder that wellness isn't gone, it just moved into a different time slot. It's very hard to envision what our daily schedule would have looked like, and every day we think of a new idea of how to shift processes. Quickly, we realize that not everything needed a meeting to decide. All it took was trying out a different way and seeing what worked. For example, moving our member intake log from a private staff files to our shared Google Drive with members. This was the decision that was made while a member and staff were trying to add a new member to our email list. We decided at the moment to make this change and then added this change to our unit announcements. Voila.
So some recommendations. Kind of from what we've experienced with all the changes that were happening on like a larger scale, even before colleague training, there was a lot of change happening within our clubhouse. So throughout that process, we've tried our best to engage everybody, all the staff and members, explaining the why or the reasons behind why we're making certain decisions and asking for input. So not like just telling people and explaining the why, but like asking the what do you think about this? Every step of the way. Breaking down the work has really been helpful. Like in our reception jobs, we have time slots. So like 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. The same for our cash register in the kitchen. There's time slots that people can sign up for instead of feeling like if they sign up for the register, they're there from 9 to noon or something. So clearing that up has really helped. And a step-by-step how to document on how to do the reception job and how to do the cash register job has really been helpful. Really encouraging each other to take risks and try something new. The clubhouse environment is so dynamic, and I feel like every day is kind of a different day. So encourage each other to think different and take risks. Not everything can be planned in detail. Sometimes you just have an idea and you try it out. But knowing that we're going to be doing that together, and that's not going to fall on anyone's shoulders in particular for having the idea. Being transparent about the challenges. I try my best to be pretty open about what I find difficult or what has been difficult historically, which seems to open the door for collaboration, because then you can kind of relate on what your experiences are and try to find new solutions. Being realistic about capacity. That kitchen schedule was a huge shift for us, and realizing like what is realistic for the work of the day, because the kitchen is so busy. It really helps to have a schedule to keep us on track, and gathering information and feedback from members and staff continuously. And just reminding everyone that we're here, this is new to everyone, and we're just going on this journey together day by day. Has been really helpful.
So next slide. So our successes, we now have a fast-paced, vibrant work order day, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. Staff are less stressed and can share the work in a more cohesive way. Member leaders have really emerged and are helping it in each unit. We have secured our first transitional employment with Vanilla Blossom Flavors. Our subjective reports from our members have improved mental health for both staff and members. And we have a deeper relationship and social connections in our colleagues.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So our Clubhouse community here at Connections Place in Victoria is super thrilled to have been part of this webinar. Everybody's been buzzing about it in the Clubhouse, and we're really excited about the opportunity for us. And yeah, we've been so grateful to be on the panel today.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you guys, and it's just so great since you had came to training here to see all those changes that you've made, and that you really incorporated a lot of what you learned with our clubhouse during your training here. And I am just really honored to be able to say congratulations on your first time accreditation, and welcome to the Clubhouse community. So it's great to have you, and thank you for joining the webinar.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So for our attendees, if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A box. You can click on that button at the bottom right of your screen to submit any questions that you would like asked for the event. For our polls today, it looks like we did have about 90% of our voters agree that the activity in clubhouses after lunch did dip in activity. So it seems like we're seeing that all around. And I'm just going to read a few of our results for, so we had a poll. In a few words, let us know what recent changes you have found most fulfilling within your clubhouse. And we have more referrals. We have added different / more fun work to our afternoon task boards, being open and clients in person. One was after we had a group go to college training, we changed our meeting structure and now have more effective meetings, which all is positive. And I just want to look at one more before we go over to questions. And it looks like, how would you rate your clubhouse on the variety of both accessible and challenging tasks that can make work easier or more interesting to engage in? And it seems like a majority of them rated a 3 out of 5, which is great. We didn't have any negative. Everything is awesome. So all the clubhouses seem to be thriving now. So for our first question, and it's going to be a poll for our attendees as well. For our presenters, do any of you have any projects with firm deadlines that may add some pressure yet some urgency and excitement to the process that you can talk about?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Neelam and Mike, do you guys want to share something with that?
Sure. Well, we often have grants that we're applying for, and those have deadlines. And so when we work on those together, we have the deadline in mind, and we sort of divide up the work, and that really helps us to stay focused, knowing that there's a timeline that we have to meet.
Mm-hmm. And also our bank deposit at the end of each month, we have to do that by the last day. And there's a couple members who are really involved in that whole process. It's like counting all of our cash and then recounting it and taking it to the bank. So that has to be done. Yeah, that's a big one.
I think that both of the clubhouses, you guys talked about breaking down the work and making it more accessible. And I feel like where there's those projects where it has to be turned in, whether it's a grant or a money deposit, having the due dates and each step broken out so that you know that you have enough time to complete everything. And I feel like there definitely creates a little bit more pressure and stress within the clubhouse, but I think that that's what also brings the vibrancy to the clubhouse also. And it's really preparing members to go back out into the work of the community and become employed, because there's a lot of jobs that have deadlines. Kelley, Michelle, is there anything you guys want to share with that?
Yeah, I know like maybe Michelle could speak to more our accreditation deadlines coming up that we've been working on, but separating and becoming a freestanding clubhouse, we have had to hit a lot of different deadlines, or making sure we're working on our contract with our CMH. And that has been really stressful for some folks, but again, like keeping it relevant, keeping the conversation open, and making sure there's time on the schedule to work on that, saying, hey, like in work order day today, we will be working on X task for like this time to this time. Anyone's welcome to come and help collaborate. And just letting people know how they can get involved in those tasks, I think help with like offsetting the pressure and making it very exciting to come and join, and flexible too. But we also have accreditation coming up, and Michelle, I know Michelle and our colleague Webb are leading that, so maybe she can speak more to that.
It could be very anxious or exciting as well, but as long as we keep our communication in the clubhouse together, we can get through it and make sure all the members participate in with that accreditation process, so we can be credited again. And so that's important for us, especially as a freestanding, not freestanding, but a standalone clubhouse.
Thank you for sharing with that. I completely agree. And I feel that that those deadlines not only creates the vibrancy, but it creates an urgency, and that forces us to work with one another. I know that there's projects that we've had at Alliance House, usually finance related, and I really build my relationships when I go to someone like Damon and say, hey, we have this deadline. I need help with this project. Can we work on this together? And so I feel like that urgency really strengthens the relationships also.
That's great. Thank you all. Looks like for our attendees, everyone's very positive. We're kind of clear, even across the board of I love it, I do, but sometimes it makes me anxious, and not currently, but I'm open to the opportunity. So that's awesome. Again, anyone that has questions, you can hit the Q&A icon at the bottom right of your screen, and we will go over some questions. So our next one is for Connections Clubhouse. What specifically did you learn at college training that helped you re-image your clubhouse culture?
That's a really good question. Honestly, just seeing Alliance House in action was very eye-opening for both Andrew and I that went there. So like seeing the flow of the meetings was huge for us, because there were times where we would sit in our unit meetings and kind of zone out a little bit because it would go on for a fair amount of time. So seeing how like fast and efficient the meetings were, it was really helpful. The work boards were very helpful because our jobs were so general, it was hard to envision how to break them down and how to make them specific. And so seeing like it spread out over the week, and then what were the daily jobs and what were the monthly jobs really helped like break that down, even like for, yeah, on every level. So those two things were huge for us. And when I was asking for feedback in our kitchen unit, they said the same thing, was like the work board, changing that and having a clear vision with that was huge. So really seeing it in action, I would say, was really helpful.
I think it was great as you were giving your presentation when that slide came up that had the picture of the work board, and I saw that and I'm like, I could literally walk into their unit and be a part of it. It would feel just like I'm at home because it looked so much like ours, and I think it's great that you incorporated that.
Yeah, we stole liberally from you.
Very liberally.
There is no stealing in Clubhouse. We are all about sharing, and that's why we do these webinars and we have training and stuff, is because we really want everyone to learn from each other's best practices. I'd be the first to admit, and Rebecca will back me up on this, that we probably get more from the people coming to training than you guys get going away, because we are always having discussions after training and saying, hey, that's the idea that this clubhouse was doing. I like that. We should do that at our clubhouse. So the clubhouse community is great. And Kelley or Michelle, is there anything you'd want to add to just kind of that, discussion?
Michelle, anything for you?
No, I definitely, when I came to training, I definitely was very happy to take back what I learned from Alliance House and just to apply that with our clubhouse and see how we can make our clubhouse much better and efficient. So that really the board and everything was just a big help for us, so we can just better our work order day.
Yeah, I agree. The way the tasks were broken down were very helpful to Fresh Start, like AM and PM tasks. And another thing that stuck out to us at Alliance House was the knowledge and like vibrant discussions of Clubhouse standards and culture and how those work throughout and are interwoven into the work we do. And I think that has a really big part in empowering members to take lead in the clubhouse and really find their ownership and sense of belonging over the work. And we brought that back and have been having a lot more intentional discussions. We stole the phrase from Alliance House, what is the why? And we put it into our unit meetings, and that has been very helpful. We're returning members, current members, and new members to just remind themselves of best practices, what makes good clubhouse culture, and again, like I said, empowers them to do the work they want to do. So it's been really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the other thing that you brought up in your presentation kind of goes towards breaking down that work, is you have to be intentional about it. You have to think of like, why do we want to break it into these steps? What makes the most sense? How is it going to engage our members? How's it going to get the job done? So I think, the intentionality that you were talking about during your presentation is important as well. So thank you guys for your comments.
I love that you bring up both of the clubhouses today. You guys have shown that breaking it down to the AM and the PM work. And I know at Alliance House, we had our own aha moment years ago when we had a lot of finances that changed, and there's members so eager to be involved in accounting and finances. And so we had this morning crew that would always be there, and they completed all of the finances for the day. And so we had people coming in the afternoons, coming in from work or TEs, and they're like, hey, I love to do accounting too. And now all the accounting's done. And so we had to have one of those intentional meetings where we wanted to come up with a solution. And the solution is that we split the finances for an AM and then for PM, so that everyone felt like they can be involved. But also it took some of that morning work and it brought it into the afternoon to create the afternoon more vibrant, and making sure that it's not only cleaning stuff in the afternoon, but that we had accounting and clerical.
Great, thank you all. Our next question: do you have any suggestions for tasks or jobs to add to unit task boards that are accessible and meaningful?
Kelley, Michelle, would you guys like to answer that?
Yeah, Michelle, feel free to jump in. I know we've done a lot of work on this. I think it's hard to give a specific example to each clubhouse. And while we all share similar work and jobs throughout the clubhouse, it's very individualized for your clubhouse. And so what I would do is have a really intentional discussion meeting on what are your needs? You know, like I think when you sit down and talk about like what are the needs of the membership, what are the needs of the organization, what are the needs of your work order day, and you'll be able to say like, oh, these needs are here and like we're actually not adding them into our work right now. How can we expand upon that? And it might be something you already are doing that you could actually break down into AM and PM or so forth. And so like the conversations are sometimes long and they're you know, like I would welcome differences in opinions and just like keep the conversation going, and you'll work out the needs of your clubhouse, which in turn becomes the work order day, carrying out what needs to be done. So I don't know, Michelle, any thought on that?
Yeah, like I always said, communication is definitely a must. And it lets everyone in the clubhouse know what our needs are and what is the overall objective to what we need to be doing as a clubhouse. So if you can't communicate as a clubhouse, then it can, some things can be left out.
Yeah, that's a great point. Some things can just be like lost in the work order day. And then I would also think about how you're dispersing the work once you talk about the needs. But I think the first thing to do is like sit down, look at the work you have, and then like talk about the needs of the clubhouse. And hopefully like that discussion will be very colorful and able to come out with some more like concrete, tangible work.
Great answer. I love that. I feel like in addition, I know that today we are talking about the practical tools or the tips, and those are really important, breaking down the work, having discussions of what is the clubhouse work. I feel like also it's how our staff holding the work in their head. And we talk a lot about that a lot in training. Oftentimes we'll work with different clubhouse staff during training and they'll say, well, I just hurry and do that at the end of the day because it has to get done, or there's not any members that like to do that. And is that really true? I think other things is when you walk into the clubhouse, are the staff the first ones to go and answer the phone? Are the staff the first one to speak up in the meeting? Are the meetings basically staff run or facilitated? And so really challenging, I think, ourselves as staff is to hold our tongue and to allow that space to ask for opinions. Anything else that you guys would like to add, Connections?
Yeah, this is actually something that came up pretty recently. So some of our how-tos are very detailed, like it's a document that's like a few pages and there's a lot of words and there's a lot of writing. And we had some feedback that might not be accessible for everybody to be able to go through something like that word for word, because it can be pretty overwhelming. So we challenge ourselves to think of different ways that, like, let's say it's a how-to for doing a tour or an orientation. What are some different ways we can incorporate other formats of doing this that makes it easier for other people to do? And I think, Kelley, you were kind of adding on, like touching on that. But like maybe we use videos to help people who are coming into the clubhouse, or something that's a little bit more verbal. So yeah, thinking of the different delivery methods to make the work more accessible, because if it's a really long-winded document, that might work for some people and it does capture the big picture, but it's not always easy to take a document like that as a how-to and for everybody to find that to work for them. So different formats for sure. Video is something that we're going to try to pursue. Yeah.
A great idea. Thank you.
Great. Our next question, how do you incorporate education into the work order day, and what does that look like in the afternoon?
I love this question because I feel like at the Alliance House, we actually have a very strong education program. We partner with a local school here to work for the high school and GED, to where our members are actually able to do all that work at the clubhouse. So we actually prepare the packets, we grade the packets. We have a lot of members who do member tutoring. We have community partners that come in and do tutoring. And then in the higher ed sphere, we partner with the local community college where I work to really focus on trying to get our members into programs that they can get degrees and get better paying jobs and stuff. I'd like to take this one to Neelam and Mike, since you guys are really new to the clubhouse sphere and education tends to be one of those things that comes on later. How are you guys addressing education at this point?
At this point, we have a member actually who's really like, there's someone that's emerged as a member leader that through working in the business unit. So kind of backing up a little bit, they often were doing a lot of dishes in the kitchen. And that's kind of what they were doing when they're coming into the clubhouse to work. And then once we separated, they realized that, hey, maybe I want to try like some more business computer sort of related jobs. And then through doing that work for the past few months, they're like, I think I want to do a bookkeeping course. So in January, they're going to start a course. I think it's like 2 classes in that semester where they're going to, try that out. And we've been really reminding them that we're here to support them if there is anything that we can do, like as a clubhouse community, to help them stay on their goals. And maybe that looks like meeting weekly, that we'll collaborate with them to make sure they feel supported in that, given that we had kind of created that sort of environment where they could see themselves doing that work. So at this point, it is more like working one-on-one with people and members who are pursuing those goals, but it's starting to go in that direction. We also have like a few of our staff that had been doing their practicums through the mental health and addictions course at one of the local colleges here. So we've had practicum students coming in and learning about the clubhouse, and we keep them as staff. So we have a relationship built with some of the post-secondary institutions. It's just a matter of like when we have more capacity to build more of a formal relationship, but the seeds are there. So that's where we're at with that.
I like that because it does bring up the point where you were talking about that member that's going to take the bookkeeping classes. It doesn't always have to be about getting a diploma or a degree or going to a program. There's lots of other education opportunities that clubhouses can work on. Computer classes, cooking classes, different things like that, where you might not be necessarily going towards a specific end goal, but just learning something, getting some knowledge. And I think there's lots of ways you can bring that in. What about you, Michelle? How's your guys' education over there?
Our education is, we do have an education program where we have it twice a week. We have a study group, and we also have like a meeting, like a formal meeting where we talk about, different people who are going to school, who are getting degrees. And right now I'm going to school to get a degree in, computers, actually cybersecurity. So it's very we have a scholarship department where we offer member scholarships to help with the process, either it's with computers or with books, supplies. We also have a planning success plan where we help members plan for their education and what they're going to do after they graduate as far as getting jobs. So we just, I think the program is really educating the members and making sure they stay in school and for their recovery as well.
No, it sounds like you guys have some great stuff going there. We actually have an education and employment dinner we do every month, and ours was last night. And that's one of the opportunities where we can share successes, what people are working on, what people want to work on. And, Rebecca talks about it quite often when we do training, that the key to, education, employment, whatever it is in the work order day is just making it visible. So making sure that you have it on the whiteboard, making sure that you have meetings that are going to be, very announced and that members are aware of to get them involved. The other item I think that you mentioned was the scholarships, and we do a scholarship as well. And I think that's really important because I think with anything in the clubhouse, we want to try to remove as many barriers as members might have. So those are some great thoughts. So thank you.
Great. Our last question for today. What do you think is the first step to take for a clubhouse that wants to re-inaugurate, I can't say that word, their afternoon work order day?
What was the word? Sorry.
Reinvigorate, R-E-I-N-V-I-G-O-R-A-T.
Reinvigorate.
Perfect.
Okay. Great question. Neelam, Mike, would you guys like to take this one first?
Sure. So I think the first step is to involve everyone. I think if you try to do it all by yourself, it's not going to work in the clubhouse world. So I think getting everyone involved in the process, and then sort of figuring out exactly what it is that's missing in your afternoon, whether is it staff only work, or staff that have got the work in their heads, or is it just that all the work has been piled into the morning because that's when most people are there, typically.
Thank you for sharing. I completely agree. And just going back to those intentional conversations and talking about the standards. And of course, we don't want to spend our whole day in meetings, but for those first steps, it, like you were saying, Mike, is identify what is our barrier right now. Maybe it is the work is in the morning, or maybe the work is in the staff's heads. And then I go back to the same thing of that culture. If we are saying that we need members to help us, but we're not acting like that as staff, or we're just doing it on our own, members know that, and they are going to not feel needed or wanted or even be at the clubhouse. So I think really genuinely meeting the members and involving them in the work. Kelley and Michelle, what would be your first steps?
I definitely think that if members and staff work side by side with each other and interact with each other, that would be one of our goals, is to make sure that everybody is working together and not just staff working on their own or members working on their own, that we work with the staff to meet our goals.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what Mike said really spoke out loud to probably one of our first steps was there was a lack in the work order day somewhere. The specific problem was not identified yet. But in order to figure out what was going on, we needed more than just the few people that were actually attending. So like making sure everyone is involved in those discussions and making a huge effort to like make those meetings accessible and those discussions, even the discussions accessible. Something to Neelam, she said like sometimes the format isn't always the best way to show or display information. So giving folks multiple opportunities to be engaged in those discussions that is, I think will help give a lot of clarity and insight into like what's going on and how you can work towards better steps to, more vibrancy.
I wanted to add something on this briefly. Is you know, and I've said it in our clubhouse quite often, and it sounds funny when you hear it, but really having a vibrant clubhouse makes a more vibrant clubhouse. And what I mean by that is, I see everyone on your heads, but you know, if you go into your unit and people are just kind of sitting there, kind of dragging, and you know, it's not that engaging, and then you go home. You know, so if you're energetic and you're, you know, excited about the work, you're, you know, the members and staff, you know, engaging anyone that walks by your unit or comes into the clubhouse and welcoming them and getting them involved. The more often you do that, the more people stay, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. And you know, so I think the key is just having that energy to begin with, you know, the small group of people that's already working there will help that group grow.
So much, everybody, and thanks, Damon. I know, just quickly, one of the things that have really helped our units is once a year, each unit will do their own retreat where they just either step away from the clubhouse for the day, maybe get some pizza, and they go through the whole work board and they really evaluate each task. And there's many times where it's like, why are we even doing this? And there's other times where we're able to spend time and break things down. And so just that one day is so helpful for us. So that's also a great first step. But thank you, everybody.
Great. Thank you to all of our presenters. We do have some comments. Someone said, excellent presentation. This was wonderful. So thank you all. If we have not answered your question, please send an email to wanawebinar@fountainhouse.org. The PowerPoint presentation for today's session will be sent directly to everyone in attendance, and the recording will be made available next week. Please take a moment to fill out the short survey that will appear once you leave the event. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Please be on the lookout for announcements regarding our future webinars.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.